I firmly believe that cash flow is king, and most people don't follow that guide.
Welcome. This is the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is where you'll learn strategies to help you achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host, Riyad Khleif, has owned over 2,000 homes and apartments, and he brings experts in all aspects of real estate investment and management onto the show. Now, here's your host, Riyad Khleif.
Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Riyad Khleif, and I am thrilled you're here. I know you guys are going to be very excited about who we're interviewing today, and you're not going to want to miss this episode. But before we start, I just have a couple of quick things. I want to mention to you guys that I love it when you reach out to me about the deals that you're doing. You email me, you call me. So if you're listening to my podcast and you've purchased a multifamily property as a result of what you've learned or been inspired by on this podcast, please give me the gift of letting me know about it. Email me at rod@rodkhleif.com and tell me. And that's RODKHLEIF. I tell you, nothing makes me happier than to get those emails. So like I say, I'll ask of you, please give me that gift. I also want to thank you guys for your patience in waiting for my book. I finally got the editing back from my editor. I'm doing the final edits, and we're very, very close. So those of you that haven't gotten on the list for a free copy, be sure you do that, because I'm only going to give it away free till the end of the year, and then I'm going to put it on Amazon, and it'll cost. So if you want it, text ROD to 41411, and we'll put you on the list. And guys, it's coming very shortly. And last but not least, I want to also mention that I absolutely love interacting with you guys on social media. So, I'm happy when you connect with me and interact with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Please do that. I love talking to you guys. So let's get this show on the road. My guest today, guys, is Ken McElroy. This guy controls over $700 million worth of real estate. And what's crazy is I first saw Ken speak at a boot camp in Phoenix on syndications probably 5 or 6 years ago. My wife and I were there, and we both remember being very impressed with what he'd accomplished at the time. And Robert Kiyosaki was at that event, and I got my picture with him, which was a big deal for me. And I discovered Ken is a best-selling author and has authored 3 books with Kiyosaki through his Rich Dad Advisor series. The names of them are The ABCs of Real Estate Investing, The Advanced Guide to Real Estate Investing, The ABCs of Property Management. And I know he just wrote a book on entrepreneurship that I'm really looking forward to reading called The Sleeping Giant. And, but I know what you guys are thinking. So this guy has $700 million worth of real estate, and I haven't even bought a duplex yet. And I know you guys have heard me tell you that if you want to model someone that's a success at whatever it is you want to be successful in. And Ken is definitely one of those guys. And I know Ken will tell you he started at the same place each of you did. So without further ado, Ken, I am honored and humbled to have you on our show.
Thanks, Rod. It's great to be on. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind, because I've heard your story, but my listeners haven't, can we just start, back at the beginning and just give us kind of an outline of your start in the real estate business and how you've come to where you are now? Yeah,
absolutely. So I started in the property management business. Okay. And so right out of college, I took a job with a property management firm in Seattle, Washington. And at the time, the firm was really small. It's now a national firm, but it was a great opportunity for me, and what a learning experience. And so I started off on the side of the business that I was actually helping investors and owners of real estate. So I was doing everything from painting units to the landscaping to, doing plumbing repairs and cleaning units and renting units and all those kinds of things, right out of school. And I actually was living in a 60-unit apartment building in Seattle as a manager. And while I was getting my real estate license, and so my goal was always to go into real estate, but I found my way with property management. So I worked for that firm for a little over 8 years and rose up to be one of the vice presidents, and ended up moving to Las Vegas and opening an office for them there. And then also. Then I ended up moving to Phoenix. Scottsdale actually was where I live now. And so the first, right out of school, the first job that I had, the only job actually, was in the property management business. And that actually gave me the knowledge to be able to buy them. But I didn't have any money. My parents weren't from any money, and neither of my parents went to college. So I didn't quite know how to do it. And so I started to, find people, mentors and things like that could help me understand, how to buy them. I completely know how to run them.
Right.
This is primarily multifamily, but I had no clue how to buy one. And so that was a scary part for me, obviously. And but my very first property that I ever bought was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condominium. And I moved somebody into it, and I cash flowed about $150 a month when it was full. And so that was that was my very first purchase. And then I ended up buying a bunch of small things. And then eventually I graduated and felt comfortable buying some of the larger ones. And I've had I guess I kind of, through that period of time, I realized that I'm just a serial entrepreneur. I just loved, I love being able to generate my own money somehow.
Right.
And that primarily was real estate in the beginning. Now it's multiple businesses, but I just continued to buy real estate. I ended up getting a partner later. I was still my partner, and we build now. So we have about 1,000 units under construction in Arizona. We own just under 10,000 units, apartments.
Wow.
We have about 350 employees, and the company's called MC Companies. And, we're based primarily in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arizona.
Wow, that's fantastic. So can we go back to when you said you bought some smaller stuff? Are you talking like duplexes or 10, 20, 30 unit or what, tell me dig in a little more on that.
Yeah. So first it was all condos and single family houses.
Right.
Which is, I think, what primarily people do.
Right.
And then it graduated up to, larger stuff, 4plexes, 8plexes and things like that. And that's when I wrote that, I ended up writing the book. I met Robert Kiyosaki about, it's been a while back, maybe 15 years ago now. And this is right when he launched Rich Dad. So it was just after that. And I was introduced to him because I was actually raising money. So I was trying to find somebody, including Robert, anybody right at that point.
Right.
But believe in me and invest in my deals and things like that. And Robert, to me, was just another person in that line. And I got to know him, and I started understanding about some of the things that he believed in. And in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, he talks about property managers and how valuable they are. And quite honestly, Rod, that's just not something that people say very often. People usually aren't very nice to property managers.
Oh no, believe me, I know. I've managed my own stuff for years, and property managers they don't get a phone call from people telling them how happy they are with them. It's either an owner complaining or it's a tenant complaining. So no, I've got that memo too.
Yeah. So we hit it off right away, and he became an investor over time, and I realized quickly that, in order to get bigger, I was because you run out of your own money very quickly.
Sure. And
so I realized that I was going to have to learn how to raise money in order to keep going and build an organization. So I started on small and then, graduated up to the bigger. I wasn't intimidated buying the big stuff because other than what I didn't know, I understood how they ran.
Right.
So that was a huge advantage.
No, absolutely.
I managed, I think, close to 30,000 units by that point for my prior company.
Wow, that really is a leg up for sure. So those of you listening, I mean, if you have an opportunity to get involved in some management, here's a great reason why. So, you started raising money. I mean, how did you first start raising money? Obviously, you've become very good at that, because I remember you talking about it in the seminar that I was at. So, talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So I think it all starts. And we all start at the same place. I certainly didn't know anybody with money. My parents didn't have any, my family didn't have any, and so I had a rich uncle. He was my very first meeting, and of course he didn't say no, but he didn't say yes. So but he sitting down with him, I found a deal. I brought it to him, and he showed me all the reasons why we shouldn't buy it. And so, very worth my time, even though it was a no, and some people would call that failure. I think you have to do that often. I think you have to just jump in and let the numbers kind of present themselves. And if they do, then the raising of the money is actually a lot easier than people think, if the numbers are true, and that's the biggest issue. And if you don't know what to look for in the numbers, then you have to find somebody who can help you with that. Right.
Now, you talked about going out and raising money and finding mentors. I assume Kiyosaki probably may have played a small role in that, but or maybe a large role. Were there other people as well that you sought out, or was it? Did your partner play?
Oh,
a big role?
yeah.
Okay.
So this was way before I met Robert. So no, I was trying to find people that already owned properties, and people that were investors. And usually it was word of mouth. So back then, you can imagine LinkedIn wasn't around or anything like that. So, you can find out who's buying real estate, and who's investing. It wasn't as transparent as it is now, but, it was, I remember, trying to figure out who owned different buildings from tax records and trying to meet them and try to, have meetings with them. And you'd be completely surprised at how many people will give you their time, especially, maybe not when they're 30, 40 years old, but, and I'm just using that as a general guide, but I would say somebody who's been investing for 20, 30 years, they truly have learned a lot, and they're the best people to sit down with and talk to about everything. If that's a career that you're going to go, and I believe that in everything, actually.
No question. And they enjoy giving back. I mean, when you've done it for 20, 30 years, I mean, I get so much pleasure out of this, I can't even begin to tell you. And you're absolutely right. So guys, don't be afraid to go out there and ask, because the people enjoy giving back and helping the young guy up, so don't be afraid to do that. What was your first big deal? Can we talk about that one? And were there any struggles with it? I mean, how big was your first big one? And say 100 plus units.
Yeah. My first big deal was a $9 million apartment deal. Okay. I actually still own it.
Wow.
So, that's the other thing, we talk a lot about with Rich Dad is about cash flow. I firmly believe that cash flow is king, and most people don't follow that guide. Most people are trying to time things. I bought that building for $9 million. Today it's worth over 20, probably. Wow. I've owned it for, 12, 13, 14 years. I think those are the big ones.
Okay.
We own a lot of property like that, but I think I raised, I'm trying to remember, $3 million, and it's 182 units, and we still own the property, and so we try to keep everything we can.
Sure. Now, can I ask you, if you don't mind sharing, can I ask you what the structure was on that first deal? How much did you have to give to your equity partners, and how much were you able to retain for putting it together?
Yeah, so there, what we did on that one, if I can remember, I think it was like a 90-10 deal where I did all the work and gave the equity 90% of the deal.
Wow. See, guys,
But I didn't
sometimes
have
that's
to put any
sometimes
money.
that's what you have to do, and that's why I'm really glad that you use that as an example, because that's the first time any of my people that I've interviewed have had that high of a split that discussed, but that got you going. I mean, that kind of a deal puts you on the map. I mean, then brokers
Without a
pay
doubt.
attention to you, and wow.
Well, you gotta understand that, once you start to develop some momentum in the business, like you said it, once I bought that building, nobody cares about the splits, right? So nobody cares on the outside of your partnership. So,
Right.
all they know is, hey, Ken McElroy just bought a 182 unit building. And so all of a sudden we started seeing all these different deals. We started seeing all these different investors, and we started to build momentum. And, now our splits, of course, are quite different.
Right.
After you start to build a track record. I never look back and regret that decision ever, my split, anything. Those investors had a high degree of risk because it was my first deal and I didn't have experience. So, I feel like it was equitable.
Absolutely. And see, guys, so don't be greedy on your first larger deal, because then as you guys know, brokers won't take you seriously until you've taken something down. And then once they see that you're for real and you can close, you're going to get pocket deals, and you're going to get deals that never make it to LoopNet or never make it on. I mean, would you agree, Ken? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, what that deal did for us is it legitimized what we were doing.
Right.
And it took it from talk to action. And, there's a big difference, because I still see people talking, and I made all the mistakes before that deal too, Rod. I mean, I believed that I had to have all the equity lined up beforehand. And, the smart equity, and I get those exact same discussions today. People say to me, they say, hey, if I find something really good, would you invest in it? Well, that's kind of a silly question, of course.
Right.
Right. So, but then, then they bring a deal and it's not a good deal, and then they're emotionally attached to it somehow. And you say, listen, this, I understand that you think it's good, but it just isn't. And here's why. And, so they lose sight of, the deal and, they get connected to the equity. And so the deal and the numbers drive everything.
Right.
So, somewhere along the way, many years later, I met Robert Kiyosaki, and, we would joke because I would say, once you find something that actually proves out and it's a good deal to invest in, and you think, and you've done everything you can to make sure that you can mitigate all your risk, but there still is risk. We call it, every good deal gets done basically on a napkin, every single one.
No kidding. Yeah.
And,
you find the deal, you'll find the money, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And we went to, I went to New York with him to speak. I remember we were out on the trade show floor, and, there was all kinds of people all over the place. It was a real estate syndication type convention, but it was a big one. There were over 50,000 people that attended. And, and they had these beautiful girls standing next to these, big displays in New York, because this was in New York high rises and condos and, all this stuff. And I remember walking through there and just grabbing collateral brochures because, we had to speak a couple times, and I figured while I was backstage, I could just thumb through this stuff and, because that's what I like to do.
Sure.
Well, and then it hit me. I'm like, Robert, the bigger the brochure, the worse the deal. The more glossy, the more beautiful, the more illusion there is. Probably there's some hair on that deal, if and it's true. if somebody has to work that hard to raise money and to sell things, you should be looking very, very hard at it, because I'm telling you, the best deals that we find, our deals now, we'll raise we put out a deal, we'll raise $6 to $10 million in a day.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's how fast. So when we put a business plan out, it usually gets committed within a day. On some of the bigger ones, it might take a little longer.
Are you still actively buying right now?
We're trying. It's
right.
The prices are really high
right.
in multifamily. So we just haven't been that successful lately. We bought a building 90 days ago for $34 million in Mesa, Arizona. That was a nice value add. So we're looking. We have acquisition people that are out, meeting with brokers in other states and other cities, but we're having a heck of a time. People are overbidding on properties right now.
Yeah, no question. It's now. Let me ask. I want to come back to this topic in just a second about the state of the economy. But question. You say focus on cash flow, and that's the title of my podcast for that very reason. Because I got my clock cleaned in 2008 because I was in 800 single family houses, and my multifamily did just fine through '08. How did you do through '08?
So we ended up. Obviously weathering the storm.
Right.
We had no issues.
That's great.
Where we had problems were with our residents. So our residents were losing jobs, and they were going through a tough time. So what we did is, I have a management company that manages everything we do.
You own it, right?
Yes.
Right.
We ended up putting a whole campaign around our tenants. So we had those banners, and we had a bunch of collateral material that basically said, listen, it's a hard time right now. If you need to, you need to have some rent interruption, or you need something, come sit down with us and let's work something out together so that,
Brilliant.
Yeah. So we spent about 2 years on that. That helped a lot because the residents would come in, and in some cases, we just did whatever we could to accommodate them during that period of time.
Sure, give up a couple months free rent to keep them. Good Lord, that's a win-win all the way down the line. So that was a brilliant strategy. Good. So
our cash definitely went down.
Sure, but you survived it. You didn't give properties back, and you didn't, like people do.
We weren't even close.
Right.
Yeah, not even close. We don't have anything really highly leveraged.
Right.
So our occupancies went from low 90s to low 80s or something.
Right.
So,
right.
But so our occupancies definitely went down, and our cash flow definitely went down. But we skirted right through that.
That's fantastic.
Period of time.
Now, I want to get back to something else you said, because this is my mindset. Would you call yourself a real estate buyer versus a real estate seller?
Oh, yeah. Right. In my whole career, I've only sold a few buildings.
There you go. Guys, did you hear that? I mean, there's so many people out there that buy thinking that they want to sell in a few years. The real money is in buying and holding, and I hope you can see that by this conversation with Ken. And and I've interviewed other big players that they say the same thing. It's what else can you buy that somebody else pays off? And like you say, that first property you've been into it 12, 13 years, you've had a lot of principal, unless you've refinanced it, you've paid it down in a big way. And so what do you tell your investors? That brings me to that. So do you typically have a liquidation event to give your investors some of their capital back, like a refi, or are they in for the long haul?
Well, it's a great question. So it's important to educate your investor before they invest that it's a long-term hold.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's you got to set that expectation up in the beginning. And if you do not, then of course they want their money back in 3 or 4 or 5 years, just like Wall Street. Right. So, so that's so the investors all know when they invest that these are, our goal is long-term cash flow and to return your capital back tax-free through a refinance. So that is almost entirely the goal is, so we'll invest in something and we'll pay it down over time. We'll improve it, increase the value, and go and get new loans to then return their capital. So just for your audience, if I buy something and I put $1 million down and I increase the value and I'm able to pull that back out through a refinance, that's tax-free, right? Because you don't pay tax on debt. So if you keep using debt to harvest the money, harvest the equity over time, then it's tax-free because again, you don't pay tax on debt. So part of it is just in educating the investor that, if you sell, you have a huge tax advantage. Yes, you get a bunch of money, but you have a huge tax issue as well.
Right. No, it's definitely the I think the best business model, the one you just described. When you're talking to your investors, once you refinance them out, do they still retain their same equity position, or are they out of the deal typically?
Oh, we definitely keep them in the long haul. They don't. Okay. They're whatever their percentage ownership is when they invest, it stays forever.
Fantastic.
And, when we give their money back, they continue to keep their ownership.
Do they typically get a preferred rate of return until they get their money back?
It depends on the deal. So in what we would do is obviously, so let me explain what a preferred return is to a lot of your audience.
Great.
So if I'm going to you, Rod, and I say, hey, I've got this deal and I want $100,000 from you, you are pulling it from somewhere. So you're either pulling it out of your bank account, or you're liquidating some stocks, or you're taking it out of your 401k plan or something. The point is it's somewhere, and in most cases it's invested somewhere. So you're looking at me going, well, why would I give you my money if I'm making, even if I'm making 3 or 4% on it, why would I give it to you? Well, so that's where a preferred return comes in, where I would say to you, hey, Rod, I'm going to give you 7% for your money, let's say. And then you give me your 100,000. And now instead of making 3 or 4 or 1, if it's in the bank, I'm paying you 7. And so that's called a preferred return as you're raising equity. And so to answer your question, Rod, when we would look for deals, we would try to look for deals that had cash flow on them already. And our goal would be 7% cash flow, cash on cash, actual real cash coming out of a deal. Okay. So if we could find something that was producing, say, a 7% cash on cash, the actual property was producing that kind of money, then now I'm covering my equity, if that makes sense. So when I'm raising equity, I already know I have a deal that can pay them. So makes your position a lot stronger.
Okay. So if you're giving someone a preferred return, then they typically don't get a piece of the equity. I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
No, I give them both. So
okay.
We raise the money, we give them a preferred return, and they get ownership.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that was the case. I didn't want to assume anything. Yeah. Okay, wow. Now that's a great deal for the investors. Your investors are happy, which is how you can raise $7 or $8 million in 24 hours. I mean, that's how it works, guys. So
it's performance based. If I don't make more than their preferred return, then I don't get paid.
Right. So you guys, I hope you all got that. So, you offer a preferred return, they're going to get that before you get a dime. So if you don't perform, then you don't get a dime, and they may not get all their return, where they won't come back to you again. So, yeah,
right.
that's.
And I also, Rod, I go into a lot more detail on this. I have a bunch of videos online at kenmcelroy.com.
Oh, fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be in the show notes, guys. His last name is spelled McElroy, kenmcelroy.com. Super. I didn't know that.
I got about 200 videos at kenmcelroy.com that you can go on and take a look, and they're just 3 to 5 minutes, but they go into all these different things about preferred equity and preferred returns and splits and all those kinds of things.
Oh, fantastic. What a great resource. Fantastic. So let me ask you this. What is there any particular, if somebody's listening, one of my listeners is listening, who would you say is the best type of person suited for multifamily real estate investing? Is there a type?
No, I wouldn't say there's a specific type. I think, in going out and speaking at my various events with Robert Kiyosaki, I mean, gosh, I know people that are, they're just starting and they're 70 years old. And, I met a woman recently that was in her 30s, and, she was syndicated. She had raised $100 million and was buying real estate back east. And it doesn't matter, who. I think it's just a matter of education. Once you get educated in the business, and you got to pour yourself into it, and you understand it, then it just becomes easier. It's just like anything else. So.
Okay. What suggestions would you have for somebody that's listening to this podcast that hasn't bought a property yet, has big dreams, wants to have 100, 200, 1,000 units? What suggestions would you have for them?
Well, the first thing that I would suggest is that they get a coach or a mentor that has done this.
Right.
So, what happens, I find a lot of times, is if, let's say, this really has nothing to do with real estate, but once I changed out my friends, and they didn't particularly know it, but once I moved into a different set of people that were doing the things that I wanted to do, then I had a support network. So, like I said, I grew up with very little and people that didn't know anything about real estate. So there's no one that I could draw information from. So I had to start finding new people to be able to converse with. And, and that also came from going to, seminars like Tommy Hopkins, and,
Sure.
Some of the old greats.
Right? I had him on the show, by the way. He was a real treat.
Yeah. I'm very good friends with Tommy. He lives in Scottsdale too.
Great guy.
And so once you start surrounding yourself with people like that, people who have really done it, your mind starts to open up. My experience has been that, even today, when I'm seeing, as sometimes you go into social circles and people don't know who you are at all. Right. And I'm not one to, I don't really like to, brag or talk about any of this with anybody, especially people that know nothing about it.
Right.
But when you're sitting there talking to people and you're talking to them about depreciation and, and cash flow, they just look at you like you're an alien.
Right.
The only thing that they can think of is there's no way you can do that.
Right.
So, and from their perspective, they're right. They can't. So,
right.
And so that's all I'm saying. I think that if you're in a social circle that doesn't support your goal, then you need to change it.
Great, a great example of that is, Trump's tax return came out, and he had a 900, I don't even remember what it was, this huge loss carry forward from his business dealings. And anybody in the real estate business like you or I, knows that that's just one of the benefits of owning real estate. And, and now there's advanced strategies like cost segregation that increase your depreciation, and people that own a lot of real estate don't pay a lot of taxes. And that's, it's by design. And the lay person just doesn't understand that the incredible benefits that come with multifamily ownership. So get mentors. Get mentors.
A great example.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Because the backlash of the public over that issue just shows you how many people are going to tell you can't do it.
Right. Yeah. And so those of you who are listening, you really got a real lesson there because, people like Trump, I mean, it's legal. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this country. There are legal ways to literally pay no taxes. And
it's true, Rod. I'll tell you something. We did a radio show, if anybody wants to hear it, Rich Dad Radio, with Robert Kiyosaki and myself and Tom Wheelwright. And we talked. This is 3 days after Trump said that. And it's an hour long, and it talks exactly about what you're saying. It talks about how legally people do it.
Right. And that's great. I didn't realize that you guys, that just came to mind when we were talking, and it is very interesting topic. And I need to go check that out. Rich Dad Radio. For people that are just starting out and they're putting their initial team together, can you speak to that a little bit as to what they should be doing and looking for?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd be very careful putting together any early partnerships. Okay. So, there's no reason to partner with anybody while you're starting. I just have everybody be independent contractors and moving forward on some kind of a deal. If you can. The reason is, unless you have a long history with that person already and you know them very well, because there's a lot of issues that come up with partnerships, whether it's a business or real estate or whatever. Especially when you give somebody something, and then they don't perform. Maybe they're supposed to be signing personally on a loan, or maybe they're supposed to be raising money or bringing their own money or whatever. So just be very cautious that way.
Okay.
But also it's interesting to me. To me, the richest people on earth should be the brokers, but they're not.
Right.
And so I think that's very interesting to me because they have their finger on the pulse of most great listings, yet they don't own any of them.
Right.
So, so that's a huge advantage to, make sure that you have a very wide web of really good brokers that are actually buying real estate. Everybody says that they're in real estate, but you only want people that have actually done it, that have experience in it, and not just one or two. You want to find somebody that's, done several. A good property manager is invaluable.
So you're saying a broker that's done deals, that's actually taken down properties, you want to look for one of those?
Well, I want to look at brokers that are very experienced in multifamily. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And they don't necessarily have to be a partner, but they definitely want to be on your team.
Okay.
In every city, there's a handful of brokers, male and female, that are incredibly good. And you just got to find those people. There's thousands and thousands of realtors and real estate agents, but most of them don't really know on this level what to look for.
Right.
So you got to find somebody that does. The second one is a property manager. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning of the show. If you find something, having somebody that actually manages property, understands the operations and the occupancy, and the operating expenses and all the things that are the trends going on in the area. Somebody who's actually running properties in the area. That's a very, very important person. My real estate attorney that I've had for 15 years actually owns shopping centers and things like that. So I didn't want a real estate attorney that was just transactional. I wanted somebody who understood it as an owner.
Right.
So you start to look at, all the common theme among all these team members are the same. You want to find people that have experience in the industry that you're trying to get into, and then you'll learn from them.
Right. And they'll refer you to other people that are competent as well, right?
Exactly right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just like two last questions here. One, I do I do 5 to 10 minute clips every week called Your Driving Force Success Tip. And I talk about goal setting and visualization and motivation and things of that nature. And I always like to ask my guests, especially somebody like you, where do you get your drive? I mean, what makes you want to jump out of bed and kick ass every day?
Oh, my kids.
Your kids?
Sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no. Obviously, I've always been a hustler. I think I think that, believe it or not, I think that coming from nothing is actually a bigger benefit than coming from something.
Yeah.
I do. Even though I think when you don't have anything, you think it's the opposite, but it isn't. And so, when I connect, it was fortuitous for me to be connected with Robert sometime later and then be part of the advisor team because, when I go speak with Robert, I do it for free. And when I go speak at the real estate guys, I do it for free.
Wow.
I do it because I think that, it's my way of giving back and sharing my experiences with people so that they can make better decisions for their families.
Oh, that's a beautiful reason, buddy. And I forgot to mention, I know that you're a big philanthropist as well. And you're on the board of Child Help and AZ Food Banks, and I got to give you a kudo. You did the largest food drive in the state of Arizona, which is just fantastic. And I have a foundation, and I feed thousands of kids every year for the holidays as well. And that's just that's what life's about, giving back. And even if you do it in a small way, you guys that are listening, you need to incorporate it in your lives. Ken, listen, it has been a real treat and a real honor to have you on the show. I'm very, very grateful for your time, and I know how valuable it is. And I just want to thank you, sir. Yeah,
my pleasure, Rod. Good luck to you, and I'd be happy to get on anytime.
Oh, I really appreciate it. All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.
You bet. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and then take a moment to visit iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and review. For more resources to connect with us further, please visit our website at lifetimecashflowpodcast.com. Tune in next week for our next show.